right, everybody. I got Icarus today with me, as well as Jaime and Commons, and really stoked to talk to you guys. You guys are joining us all the way from the UK today, and it's like what, 8 o'clock over there at night right now. It's 12 p.m. over here.
It is. Yes, the sun's almost down. I can see off in the distance.
It looks like you got some pretty good lighting though there, Jaime. It looks like it's like midday in your camera shot, and Tom looks like it's like 11 p.m. in his like
yeah, I don't know why it's so dark. It's the wall.
Yeah.
The dark wall.
Got it. Ian looks like he's somewhere in between.
Yeah. I can see the sunset here as well, so I'm just in the studio.
So I know you guys just dropped a new single together called Moment in Time. I was listening to it. Great stuff. But before we talk about that, you guys mind taking us back and just telling us how you got into music to begin with?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. So Tom and I don't really come from a massively musical background. Like it's not as if our parents were pushing music on us. Like our mum played a bit of piano, but that was it really. We had like cousins that we used to hang out with quite a lot, and they used to listen to music, and that was the way we kind of got introduced to some artists like super early on. So people like Michael Jackson, back when we were like, I don't know, 10 or younger. That's what the sort of stuff we were exposed to. So that's where it kind of started for us, is our fascination with like Michael Jackson back in the day. And then from there we started to like learn instruments at school, at primary school. We played like all the kind of standard stuff like recorder, trumpet, acoustic guitar, things like that. Just kind of cycled through a load of instruments, but always enjoyed playing music and learning like different instruments. So from there, like we just got more and more into it. And when we were teenagers, that was when it kind of crossed over to like playing in bands together. We used to jam in our mates' garages. I played guitar, Tom played bass, and throughout our teenage years, we were in various bands together. We used to play at like mates' parties and in fields and like village halls and things like that, just, you know, for fun really. But yeah, we just always
classic West Country stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like just most random parties, but it was always us. Like we were always the entertainment. So I guess it's still the case. But yeah, that was kind of our start of the journey. As most people, just a hobby, and then from being in bands, it crossed over to electronic music in a sort of late teens, didn't it, Tom? If you want to take.
Yeah, it's when you were.
Yeah, Tom. What do you think caused that shift? You know, because a lot of times those are two different worlds. You know what I mean? The garage band. You know, and what kind of music was it? Was it hard rock? Was it kind of indie rock? Was it?
It was a bit of a mixture, to be honest. We kind of played all sorts. We used to do like Zeppelin covers and you know, a bit of like Nirvana or Hendrix, stuff like that.
Right.
But we were listening to, I mean, it was a bit of a weird transition when we were teenagers. Like at 12 years old, was into sort of hard house and trance. And then as we started playing instruments, 13, 14, that's when it was like American hardcore and like punk and stuff like that. We listened to like NoFX and Pennywise, and then you know, Machine Head and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. So you guys were into electronica before, and then you left, kind of started playing some music, some kind of some band-driven music, and then you got back into it later.
Yeah, I think basically once you start to get close to 18 and you can go out to clubs,
you start going to bars and everything, and you're starting to hear more dance music. Exactly. That makes sense. Yeah.
And that was it. Like electronic music, I think really from about 17, college onwards. Going out to clubs. As soon as you could get in a club, it was like drum and bass and hip hop and stuff, and got back into the electronic side, and when we started, well, actually when we left college, we didn't know really what we wanted to do with our lives. There's like nearly 3 years between me and Ian. I finished at art college and somehow persuaded our parents to let me go and study music. And I ended up moving in with 3 DJs. So I went to study bass guitar, and I was playing in bands and stuff then, but yeah, I was just coming home and wanting to learn how to mix vinyl, and started like a vinyl obsession at 18, and then that naturally led on to production, and a few of those housemates and friends that just used to meet at that age were into production.
Is that back in Bristol?
That was actually in Guildford. I moved to Guildford.
Right.
Yeah, there's a place down there called ACM. It's like the Academy of Contemporary Music, which actually Ian came down to afterwards as well.
Yeah.
But I think we both kind of got the taste for it then, didn't we? And it was drum and bass for quite a few years. But then once we'd both done our degrees in that, you know, in live music, whilst we were playing live music still, and actually we played in a live drum and bass band at the time, we both started producing, and that's kind of when we started making music together, made really awful drum and bass.
That sounds cool though. You know,
It's so interesting because I've sorry to interrupt, but like I had so many friends that went to university in Bristol, and it was that kind of thing where everyone was into rock or indie and stuff before, and bands that were knocking about at the time, Strokes and Libertines and whatever, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then going to Bristol specifically, there was such a big dance scene and such big, especially live drum and bass as well, that you mentioned it. Like everyone got into like live drum and bass band. It was like, it's such a big student town, all that kind of stuff. That, you know, and obviously the history of Bristol is, you know, it's Massive Attack and Portishead and mixing all these genres together and all that kind of stuff. But I always wonder that thing, if I went to university in Bristol rather than going down to London, like whether I would have had that same like, okay, yeah, man, it's all about that dance music thing now, you know.
Well, that was the thing when I was actually studying in Guildford, but driving up to Bristol all the time to go to like the Academy and watch Ronnie Size do Represent live, or London Electricity used to play live, and there was like amazing like drum and bass raves at the Academy, and there was a little thing at a place called Native called Run like every Tuesday. So I'd be up and down the M4 like every week coming to Bristol to see drum and bass.
I was just about to say, I remember being a huge drum and bass fan, kind of back in high school. You know, you'd go to these parties or these raves. Back LA used to have these massive raves, and they since were outlawed in Los Angeles, so now they're all in Vegas and other parts of the United States. Yeah. But I remember going to the drum and bass rooms and just thinking that kind of was like the most badass electronic music for me, and but I've never seen it performed live, so it sounds like that'd be a cool scene.
Yeah,
I think there's a crossover. Oh, sorry, you go. Sorry.
I was just going to say, like you were saying, Jamie, there was definitely like a period where it wasn't that unusual to have live drum and bass bands. It was a thing. It doesn't really happen that much now. There's obviously Ronnie Size still, I think, does his live show, but yeah, there was definitely felt like there was a period of time where people were experimenting with taking that sound live. It's pretty hard to achieve like a good sound. You got to have a good drummer, as you can imagine.
Yeah, a good drummer and kind of have the mic set up, I guess, in a way where it kind of really hits.
Well, it's a crossover. I mean, it makes sense with going from metal to drum and bass because they're both 200 BPM, you know, or 180 BPM. So all these metal drummers who are like, you know, I'm getting no chicks doing metal, and then doing these side gigs doing like drum and bass where they get to still be like absolutely, you know, Joey Jordison out, like, you know, like playing these crazy things. And then, but there was actually girls there. I remember I had a few friends that were like became drum and bass drummers because of that.
Right. I was about to ask if that was part of the motivation from going from garage rock or whatever you were playing to let's play some club friendly music. You know, there seems to be a little bit more chicks at these places. Pleading the fifth on that one. For you Brits, the Fifth Amendment is, I'm not going to incriminate myself by answering that question. Fifth Amendment Constitution over here. So Jaime, tell us how you got your start, because you were kind of on a different wave, at least where you ended up. But of course, you guys' paths crossed recently. But how did you get started in music?
Well, I kind of went the complete opposite way. So I started a band when I was about 16, like this kind of punk rock band. We weren't trying to be punk, but we were just like pretty terrible. So we,
by default, but by
yeah,
musical skill, you were punk.
basically, yeah. Like, in my area at the time, it was everyone was trying to be the Libertines or the Strokes or Muse.
Right.
So like that was like the one of the you could be one of those two types of bands, and obviously we didn't have the skill to the Muse thing, so it was fast and it was 3 chords and it was that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And then I came down to London to university, and obviously didn't have any bandmates, and at the same time got really into folk music and like Nick Drake and all this kind of stuff. So just spent a year or two learning acoustic guitar in my dorm room and that kind of stuff. And then just got it. There was this whole West London folk scene happening then with Mumford were probably the ones that broke through the most, but you had these acts like Laura Marling, Johnny Flynn, who's now like a big actor randomly, and all that kind of stuff. So you could go and see those people and there'd be like 20 people in the crowd, and it was just this really cool thing. It was like everyone had basically just heard the Oh Brother Art Thou soundtrack at the right time, and was like now of age to be in bars trying to rip it off.
That was such a thing. Yeah, it was so that sound blew up.
Yeah, totally. I mean that's the whole of Mumford. It's just like that.
Yeah.
That record, because you've got the whole of bluegrass, Appalachia, Americana on it.
Yeah.
It's like, here's the blueprint, bam,
Yeah.
take it's basically like a greatest hits rework of all those genres. And yeah, so I was loud, and I was only going to metal shows as a kid and all that kind of stuff. I was like, why would you go to a show if you can't like go jump into other sweaty little 16-year-olds? Like what's the point of going what's the point of going to a gig unless you can't do that?
Right.
So, I mean, which is the same as dance. Like, what's the point if you can't like get up and do stuff? And then I went the complete opposite way, and I was like, no, let's sing about the sea and forests, and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and my heart.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
I used to feel the same way about music for a good period of time. It was like I only liked it if it was fast and had like a lot of energy,
Yeah, I mean, when you're young, I mean, what you need that anger, you need that violence,
right?
You need that kind of stuff, and that's the same as like hip hop now. It's like that's obviously the kids are most into hip hop stuff. Like that's got the attitude, it's got the feeling,
Yeah.
Right, that angst. You need something that's matching kind of the BPMs of your hormones at the moment. It's kind of it's therapeutic for you.
Totally.
So, and you've been at your best, you've been compared to Tom Waits and Nick Cave. Were those some of your influences as well? Because those are really cool, great, kind of gothic artists.
Yeah, totally. I think that's kind of the early day stuff. I was writing more kind of murder ballady, that kind of thing, and then kind of progressed into more just finding a home in the business and all that kind of stuff, and then finding out what you can do to keep the train rolling, really, and realizing that also there's only one Tom Waits, there's only one Nick Cave. It's like you can't try and be one of those guys, and it's like finding your own kind of path within it. So yeah, which is brought me to co-writing with people like the wonderful Icarus and other people, and and then doing sessions and writing songs, and I think I enjoy it much more because I can do a lot of different genres and do a lot of different things, do my own project, doing writing sessions with these guys, DJ stuff, or writing sessions with artists, or doing the sync stuff as well. So I've really become like a jobbing musician after kind of evolved from a solo artist into kind of a doing a bunch of different things, which I think ultimately in life makes me more happy, because I was never that guy that wanted to be your Freddie Mercury type on the stage, You
didn't need like all the glory to yourself, or do you mean more in the theatrics of it all?
It is lovely, and it is lovely, and I feel like I've had those moments in life, like supporting Springsteen, a few other different things where I've had that. It is brilliant, but all of the stuff that comes with that is just harshly outweighs the that wonderful 5 seconds of being of that like oh, this is great. I'm the best person ever. Like the crushing weight of trying to keep that up is, as we see with many artists, definitely is more than most men can handle. And I realize that, and I'm glad that I never really got there in that way.
I don't know if I've ever asked an artist this, but I feel like it's something I've wondered about with artists who co-write with a lot of other artists. Do you ever feel like you have a finite amount of ideas and then like you're in a writing room and you're giving like this great idea to maybe another artist and thinking like, hey, this could have been a Jaime, and Common song, and I'm giving it away. Do you feel that? You must not feel it too much because you're doing it so often with other artists. But does that feeling ever creep in? Like, wow, this is a real jewel. I might have kept this for myself.
I think you do as a young musician. You have that a lot, that you think like, this is the one that's going to break me. But then it comes back round to, like back around to the Icarus guys. Like, it is so much about the production and the context of the thing that you're doing. Is like, it's interesting that I'll shut up and let you guys talk in a minute, but the that Yesterday film, the Beatles one, where the guy wakes up and no one knows who the Beatles is, and he's got all the Beatles songs in his head. It's such a ridiculous concept to me, because so much of the Beatles is in the Beatles singing.
Was the concept of them, right?
And the production and the time and the context of everything. It's like, you could, people have spent their entire lives, these cover bands, minutely trying to figure out every single tiny different sound and aspect of that, and it's still not the same thing. The magic is still not there. So it's like, yes, they're great songs, but it takes people, like Icarus and other great producers and stuff to make that thing happen. And you can have the best song in the world, but it's in the production where the magic really makes it to evolve. I mean, there's a million examples of songs where if the production wasn't just right, it's a house of cards. Every production I feel that's great, it has that tension where it can fall apart at any time. It's that thing that makes it great, and there will always be other ideas. I mean, we're 100 years into popular music. There will always be other ideas.
Right. That's such a great way of looking at it. The context is so much of what you think about an artist, which is why aesthetic, videos, the person who's actually giving you that song, it's so true. Go ahead, Ian.
I was just going to say, like, Jaime hit on something that, like, is so true, that especially when you're starting out in music and you're starting your artist career, you're so precious about what you write initially, and you do think when you got something good and you think there's something special about it, you can be like, pin everything on it, and you're like, this is the one, this is everyone's going to connect with this. And 9 times out of 10 it doesn't happen the way you think it will. So I think it's a process, and like, we've all been doing this quite a number of years now, and you can appreciate when something's good, but like Jaime said, it's good for what it is and when you wrote it. And what we've come to realize and learn is just enjoy what you're writing at the time and put it out there. And if that's collaboration and it's not got your name on it, fine, however things happen, just kind of take them for what they are and see what happens with it. But yeah, in the early days, you put so much pressure and expectation on ideas, and when you think they're good, you just like, it's a process.
You break your heart over and over again.
You do, over and over again.
I guess that's one of those things. You just gotta love and let go.
Exactly.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
So both of you guys have released some music recently. So Jaime, you released a single for Franca recently, and Icarus, you guys recently dropped your a whole album last year, Unfold. But tell us how you guys put together your newest single, which at the time of recording this isn't out just yet. But when are you guys going to be dropping that? And maybe tell us a little bit about the story behind it.
4 hours time, it's going to be out in this country anyway.
Okay, so on the West Coast here, I guess that'll be 12 hours from now.
Yeah. But it's been it's been quite a process, this one, actually. We started it quite a few years ago in a studio in London which doesn't exist anymore, the old EMI studios. We had I can't remember if we had 1 or 2 days, or if maybe me and Ian were there for 2 days, and us three were together for one of those days. But yeah, we started this record. We had the idea. I think Ian, you had the demo on your laptop, which had the chimes idea going, a very basic version of what the record is now. And yeah, Jaime came in and kind of, it's one of those things where you start a session off and you play loads of ideas and you see if anything connects, if anything grabs someone's ear. And that one caught Jaime, and we just kind of worked through it. We hadn't written the track, and we said, okay, cool, like you write on this bit and stuff like this. It was like a real collaboration session in that one, and we did end up kind of you know, creating the form, the old version anyway, the form in that day. And we were quite lucky with the setup there. There was a piano. We had a big room where Jaime could record vocal, and there was also a piano in there. So there's the bit in the middle of the track where we kind of break everything down, and we've got all these piano noodles that were just kind of caught on microphone when we weren't actually recording anything. We just left it running, and then Ian and I kind of pieced those together for this final version, which I thought was like really nice, that those were just kind of, you know, just outtakes, yeah, just caught without meaning to. But yeah, we were going to try and release this at the time, and for one reason or another, schedules didn't work, and we both artists ended up writing other things, and kind of it just didn't feel quite right. And we just kind of went, okay, well, cool, we'll do our other things and see what happens. And then, you know, we've endured these last 12 months, and Ian and I started chatting, I don't know, it was probably April, May last year, and this record came up. We were listening through demo ideas that we had. It was after we dropped Unfold, and we were kind of in this like, oh, what do we do now place. And yeah, this record came about, and there's something about the title just felt really, you know, relevant. And as time has gone on, it's got more and more relevant. So we thought, right, okay, cool, let's give it another go. Let's revisit it. And yeah, just start. Actually, at first we overcomplicated, as we usually do when we go back to an idea, made it worse for a bit. And chucked everything at it, and then, you know, after a while ended up stripping stuff back, getting it back to what we felt it should be. Jaime came back in, you know, redid the vocals, had fresh ears on it, fresh take, and we finally, yeah, like got it to a place where like this is right. So yeah, it's a standalone piece that we you know, just really excited to get out into the world now. I like the fact that this is just a one-off for right now, and finally feels like, yes, we've nailed it.
That's really funny you were saying about the reworking thing, like, because that's so true on so much production now, because you have every tool at your disposal, don't you, to basically fuck it up. Yeah. So I don't know if you can say that,
yeah,
fuck it up.
Yeah, sure.
But you know, and basically you can rework it in every possible way now, you know. And I found that, like, I'm working on some stuff at the moment. It's like there's just so many tools in the arsenal that it's overwhelming, you know.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need to get it wrong every way to know that that original version is the right way. It's like that. What's that great Sherlock Holmes quote where it's like, if you remove the impossible, then you're left with the answer. You know, it's like sometimes you just got to get it wrong every way to be like, actually, no, that simple guitar, vocal, and a kick drum, that's enough. That's where the beauty lies in this thing. So yeah, I've definitely been there over the last few months, and I'm sure the months to come just completely wasted hours trying to add 70 layers of some nonsense onto something to realize that actually it's there all along.
Yeah, my fiance is, I'm gonna misquote it, but you'll get the essence. But basically, it's like, even if the first dress you try on looks the best, you still got to try on the other dresses in the store just to make sure, you know what I mean? So there's a female perspective on that. But I was also going to say, sometimes if you sit on a track too long, I feel like you can get ear fatigue maybe to it. And then so adding something new just sounds good. And you're like, oh, wow, this sounds cool. Like, I like this. But you're simply liking it just because it's new and it's freshening up the track to your ear, which is now getting tired to it. So bringing Jaime in with some fresh ears, like you said, you know, or anyone's fresh ears is probably a good idea. And maybe let them listen to the old one and then the new one too, and be like, you know, did I mess it up or did I improve it?
Well, I'm a big fan of of Damon Albarn and all that kind of stuff, like Blur and all things. And he always releases his early demos on some stuff. Like, you can go and check out like the early demos of the Gorillaz stuff, and they're awful. They're just like plain awful. You can hear the song in there, but it's like he's sitting there like, you know, like a little Suzuki Omnichord, and he's just like in a hotel room, clearly he's been like, you know, whatever, like, oh no, you know, like we're Malcolm. It's just like terrible.
Right.
But then you hear that, you know, but then obviously like Gorillaz is some of the best production in the last 20 years. It's like,
totally.
But I love that he does that, where it's like, it just gives you hope, you know.
Yeah.
You go listen to all those weird little EPs that you release of early demos, and you go, yeah, it does start somewhere, doesn't it? You know what I mean? Like, it is a process, and it's, you know, I always go listen to those when I'm feeling down in the dumps about some sort of production. You're like, no, like, it can be like my demo was better than that. Surely, I can get up there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, seeing the cracks in your heroes gives you hope, like you said, and early on, like you said, you're like, I was kind of a punk band just because the talent wasn't there yet, but that's what inspired me to start playing music, was punk rock, because I'd look up some punk rock song that I liked. You guys were throwing out some names of punk bands from the 90s, like NoFX and Pennywise. You know, I was looking up some guitar tabs and I was like, hey, wait a second, I can play this song. You know, that's all I got to do, and then, you know, and snarl into a microphone. All right, I think we can do this. So guys, thanks so much for joining us. I've listened to the track. It's great. I'm looking forward to the world hearing it. You know, Icarus, you guys, your music, I've read a description and I think it's true. It's got this weightless, polished, you know, vibe to it, which, and I feel like that word weightless is really describes, it feels light and airy, and the production's great. So, and that's evident in the new track. And Jaime, I was listening to your stuff all last week, and it's really great stuff. So if you haven't already, check out For Franca, as well as the new single by both Jaime and Commons and Icarus. But we like to end the interview by asking, and I'd love to get all three of your perspectives, Tom and Ian and Icarus, and Jaime and Commons. What, if you had one piece of advice for aspiring artists, what would it be?
Do your own thing. Don't try and copy anyone else. Take inspiration, but make sure that you just pursue what you want to pursue. And don't just try and rip someone off. You can start by ripping them off, but take it somewhere different. Just do your own thing.
Yeah.
And I would say, if you're going to be a producer, the best thing you can do is vocal production. Learn vocal production above everything, because the rest of it you can do with loops. But if you can be like a songwriter producer who can make someone's vocal sound amazing, you can write a very simple song these days and it will sound right up there with the rest of them. You know, the rest of it you can do, you know, on splice loops and that kind of stuff. But if you can get really, really good at vocal production, that as a producer songwriter, you'll go a long, long way, I think.
Yeah. That's some really
that's more of a producer songwriter thing rather than like an artist thing. Because I would say, like, I would add to the, I'm 100% would mirror what the Icarus guys just said on just try and do something weird. Because what is a pop song these days? You know, what is you know, there used to be like a type of song that is a pop song, whereas now, you know, it's so easy to copy everything that everyone copies the same sort of sound. So if you come along with something completely insane, like, even if it's not a good pop song, it's like someone's going to be like, have you heard this? Even if it's bad, you're like, this is insane. You know what I mean? Something like Death Grips or something. Like, what, you got to send it to someone and go, what even is this? I don't, you know, like, and that's the start. And then you've got an in, you know, then you're, you know, yeah, be individual. That's
then you got
really,
eyes.
like, yeah, exactly. I know that's a very like cliche thing. Just be an individual, but it is true. It's like, just go for it. If it's in your heart, just fucking, you know, be like, yeah, I'm going to sing about whatever weird subject is going to be, you know, sung about.
Yeah, I think it's great advice about the vocal advice is really just practical, functional advice, though, because that's so true. You know, we have so much at our disposal as far as loops and splices and all that stuff. But the one thing you can't really recreate is vocal. So you got to learn that tool, that function.
Totally.
Tom,
yeah,
bestow the wisdom on us.
I would say that there's kind of two things that kind of come out the back of what Jaime said. So self-belief is, so if we're talking about aspiring, it's self-belief and managing your own expectation. I think at the beginning, if you really want to do it and you really believe in what you're doing, then stick with it, but do not expect it to happen like that overnight. It's so rare that it does, and it's so rare that you are actually good enough when you first start for people to take you seriously, or, you know, actually enjoy what they're listening to. And I think that was something that was like difficult for me personally, and maybe us together, Ian. Like, when we first started, you think you're there straight away, and 9 times out of 10 you're not. So just like sticking at it and learning and getting on YouTube and seeing what other people do, and really like sticking at it and trying to figure out your craft, and sticking with the self-belief, and it will finally start. Things will fall into place. But yeah, I think having the humility to maybe realize that at the beginning you might not be a superstar.
Right. Managing those expectations. I think it gives you more, it gives you more energy, I think, to for the long haul if you manage your expectations that way too. Because if you think the finish line is just ahead, you know, you might start sprinting and burn yourself out, or do something, you know. But if you are just mentally in it for the long haul, regardless of what happens, I think that really helps.
Definitely.
I remember I saw a oh, sorry, you go, Tom.
I was just going to say, I agree. It's always long game.
I remember I saw this this interview with Will Smith, and it was around like 1998, 99. You know, he's got Independence Day, Men in Black. He's probably the biggest film star in the world. And he's on some chat show, and they're like, how do you, you know, like, you know, you're the biggest film star in the world, you know, like, how do you take hold of that kind of feeling? It's like, well, the whole way that I ever thought about it is it's like a brick wall, you know. Basically, you take every single brick and you try and lay that brick the most perfect way you can lay that brick, you know. And if you lay it wonky and you just kind of half-ass it, it's going to be a shitty brick, and then you're building a wall, then eventually it'll fall down. But if you just focus on these little things and just do it the best you can every single time, eventually you stand back and you go, oh, I've got a wall, you know. So it's that kind of thing. It's just taking those little things and really trying to do the best work you can do on that specific thing, and then eventually those build up, and then obviously you get better as well, and develop as an artist, and you develop as a writer, a producer, whatever it is. And yeah, and one day you step back and you go, oh, that's the thing. But yeah, it's you know, I think you're often, you watch a movie and it's like, it always has that montage moment, doesn't it? It's like they're in a garage, you know, they're in like a basement practicing, and it's like, hey, you guys are signed, montage, and they have that record, you know, the records come up and the records rising through the charts. Like, no, it's craft, it's something you have to work on, and you know, and I think the thing that I've come to terms with over the years is, if you're in the game, that's the win, isn't it? Really, you know what I mean? Like, if you can somehow still just be writing music in your pants in a dressing gown and not be at a call center somewhere or some other shitty job that I've had, whatever. Like, you're winning. You know, it's like, okay, sure, whatever, you're not like whatever Lady Gaga or that kind of stuff, but I guarantee you probably wouldn't want to be Lady Gaga. You know, I bet there's 9 days out of 10 Lady Gaga doesn't want to be Lady Gaga. It's like there's scales to it, and if you can work in music and just have that kind of like rolling professionalism, like work ethic, and these little moments come, and obviously we're releasing a single, and that's so sick. You know, you just have these little moments, and even though we wrote this song years and years ago, it comes back and you go, oh yeah, that was good work, and it's coming back now to fruition. Like you, and that feeling kind of comes, you know, it's like in these little ways rather than big swaths of like, this is my career. I have conquered the music world forever. Plant my flag, and now and then what? You know what I mean? And then you're not happy after that. It's like you know. So it's the point is just to keep working and enjoy the game, enjoy the craft, and if you know that's the joy of it. It's just enjoying making the music.
Yeah.
Totally. Great perspective, Will Smith. Good job.
Yeah. Well,
I love that though. I love that perspective. And yeah, like you said, if you're in the game, you're already winning. You know, you're doing something you love, and you know, I was speaking with another artist the other day, and he had a great perspective, which was that music is one of the few industries that people judge you based on superstardom as making it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if you're a superstar, you've made it. But he's like, no, if you're actually just doing this for a living, if you're putting out music regularly, then that's success, you know?
Yeah. Well, think how many, you know, there's like 7-8 billion people in the world. Probably 1 billion of them, of at least, or 2 billion of them, have picked up an instrument at one point in their lives and gone, you know, have imagined themselves on a stage at Glastonbury or whatever, Lollapalooza, whatever, fill in the blank, and had that vision, and that you can be one of the, you know, people that's kind of doing it for a living is such a, you know, it's so sick. It's amazing. It's amazing. I would never have, if 16-year-old Jaime was like, oh yeah, you'd just be still doing it and, you know, making decent money off it and getting to fly around the world and work with wonderful people, you know, obviously like Icarus and a bunch of others, then, you know, I would have been like, that's a dream. That's insane, you know.
Hell yeah.